It's about time because we're going there.
Do you feel like you're in a pivot point in life? Do you feel like you're at a crossroads or maybe an inflection point that you didn't see yourself being at? Or maybe you feel like you have limitless opportunities and you are stuck because you don't know which path to go down. Over the course of the next 3 episodes, I get to sit down with DeAnza Jarrett from Patterson Center and discuss life planning, and strategic ways to build out how to make good decisions, not just for the now, but for the future. Over the course of these 3 episodes, we're going to be talking about core values and how they impact the relationships that we're in. We're talking about replenishment cycles. Are you tired or are you just not being replenished? And the most important thing that we get to discuss is, why do we need this? Why is this important? I hope over the course of these next 3 episodes that your life is impacted and that you are better because you are here. Love you, and I hope you enjoy the episodes. In part 3 of this series, I've been so excited to share time with my friend Deonza. We get to have a conversation wrapping this up about something that I discovered that I knew this tacitly. I knew it in my head, in my heart, but I don't think I had language to articulate. And so today we're going to be talking about, in our final installation of this, is core values. Before we dive into practical and didactic and the free DF that Patterson has put together for us, Deonza, you played such a seminal part in my process through my life plan. I just want people to know a little bit more about you. This is so, it oozes from you. It's so easy in how you see things that I think people don't see. What's that phrase? We can't see the trees among the forest. As a guide, you help me see the trees. And so give me a little bit about how long have you been guiding people through this process? And I also want to say, I'm not getting money from Patterson. You're not getting money for being on this podcast. This is our love for humanity and people. And as we discussed, probably even our core values. So take me a little bit through, like, how long have you been doing this? Where is this stemmed from? I know we spoke on episode 1 a little bit about you doing this since you were a child, but what is your driver and how long you've been doing this?
Yeah. So 10 years ago, I was at a crossroads of needing vocational clarity. I was in a role that was not a good fit for me. And I knew it from the very beginning, but we were in a position where I needed to be the breadwinner and carry some of those benefits for our family. And so I said yes, but I was miserable, Bianca. I was so miserable, and I was coming home in tears, and my husband's asking me, okay, then what do you want to do?
And for context, Mike was in med school.
Yes.
And you're supporting him, and
Yes.
he's going, I mean, he's working for the family. It just is not without pay at that moment.
That's right. Yes. We were starving med students. And so I sort of laughed in that moment because I'm thinking, I don't have the luxury of asking that question of what do I want to do? And to tell you the truth, I was starting to get a little bit bitter and a little jaded because I at one point wanted to go to medical school. And so I'm watching my husband, and Bianca, it is no small task to become a doctor. And so I watched him walk through some really hard things in that. And also early on, I thought, I want to go to school and learn all the things that you're learning. That seems really great, especially when I compare, because comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
When I compare your experience right now, vocationally, he was engaging vocationally, and it's a long, long path. But here I am vocationally thinking, I just left the job of my dreams and I signed up for this. What are we doing? And so my husband in his kindness said, well, what do you want to do? And I then respond with, well, that sounds nice. Let me think about it and I'll get back to you. And so a couple days later, I'm praying about it, I'm thinking about it, and I came back and I said, Mike, I want to do life plans. And I want to do this work until I'm like 90. I don't even care if at some point I'm not getting paid to do it anymore. I love the process. And so I had encountered life plan before Mike and I even started dating, which, by the way, it informed our dating process.
So good. Yes.
Wish I would have had it That is
a byproduct of the process. And this is not a plug for the program, but it is. Like, if you're single, figure this out now so that you come into a relationship and Yes.
And so I had learned these things about myself. I understood who I was, who God called me to be, and what I was doing with that in the world. And then found myself in this place of, this is not aligning at all with who I am and what I'm called to do. And so I said, all right, Mike, let's see what this looks like. And so again, we didn't have the resources to make that happen. And I couldn't just quit my day job. And so I got certified in Patterson Life Plan in 2014. And fast forward the tape, I've been doing this now, Bianca, 10 years.
Wow.
Over 270 clients,
Wow.
individuals and couples. And every time I am amazed at the goodness of God. And it feels like I get to serve in the capacity of like sitting down and washing someone's feet. Let me hear your story. Let me get a front row seat. Tell me what's going on. And then we do something about it. And so we create these strategic plans, and I feel like I just get to launch them into the world. And so I love the gift of this process. And I'm so grateful that it just so happens to align with the thing that I get paid to do. And so being on leadership at Patterson has been really meaningful for me. And as I look at the Patterson core values and I look at my own core values, I see so much alignment.
Yeah.
And that's relationally, it's in how we show up with what we call healthy excellence. I've always been someone since I was teeny tiny that just wanted to get it right. And I wanted to look good doing it. And so in that, I see healthy excellence and I think, yes, this is a place where I want to be. These are the type of people that I want to surround myself with. And so I continue to find that there's beautiful alignment of my core values into the work that I do. And that's something that we unpack, as you know, in the life plan process as we're going through the vocational gating. Okay, great opportunity, but does it align with your core values? And we have to ask ourselves that question even professionally.
Yeah. So this is where I want to dive into in this final installation of the podcast is core values. I mentioned this earlier, it bears repeating. When we did our process and you spoke about core values, I just automatically thought, well, yeah, I have values. My values are biblical values. But I don't think I took the time or even thought about, wait a minute, me as an individual, I do have things that I value that not everyone values or that are not as, I would say, highlighted as a biblical value. So a couple of my values were trust, loyalty, integrity, financial responsibility. And though those happen to be biblical, there's a lot of biblical values that maybe don't resonate or like light me up like the ones that I just listed. And so take us on a journey. Again, there is a free resource that will be linked in the show notes. I'm going to encourage people, if they're just listening today because something piqued, the title piqued their interest, I'm going to encourage you, go back to session 1, go back to session 2. And I think what we're doing is we're just building upon the framework and understanding. But getting to this was wildly important to me because I was able to articulate my values and determined what friends are in my life, what projects I said yes to, me actually saying yes to leading the church as a single brown female who walked through hell. And also, which you kind of like alluded to, is even in partnership, whether that's business partnership or marital partnership, take me through the importance of identifying our core values.
Yeah. I think oftentimes we think about our core values and initially we go to priorities. So I have a core value of family. No, family is a priority. And there's a core value that's then informing the fact that family is a priority.
Ooh, that's great.
So it might be something around relational connection. There might be something about authenticity.
That's great.
There are different things that are going to, again, inform the way that we show up for these priorities or make them a priority. So one of the challenges that I always give to clients is really great. And can I fill a stadium full of people who would say the exact same thing? So we have these rote memory verses, for instance. And these things are absolutely true. And we are not discounting them. We're just saying they're not necessarily unique to you.
Yeah.
They're not tailor-made to Bianca. And so as we walk through these core values, we need to be thinking about what are those riverbanks that have been true for my whole life since I was itty-bitty, walking through my teen years, still today. What is helping me to make the decisions in my life? What are those things that are guiding whether or not that friend is a healthy person for me to maintain? What is telling me if my values are aligned with this person or not, and should I continue dating them? And so this alignment is really important, but we also don't necessarily need to carbon copy and share our core values. So I'll explain to parents, it's great that you have family core values. Understand that your kids may not take them into their own lives. They might adopt and adapt to some of them, but they have their own set of core values that they are going to live their life by. And that's really important. And so we have to understand, appreciate, and honor each other's core values. but it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be exactly the same. And so as we're thinking about our core values, we're thinking about those riverbanks of life. What are the things that are determining the direction that the river is going? So Bianca, if you are in a situation where you need to make a financial decision, whether you know it or not, you are checking through the boxes of your core values to say, does this align with my core value of, say, generosity? Does this also align with my core value of stewardship? Those two things can coexist, but we also respond a little bit differently if we forego one of those. So if you say yes to the spirit of generosity, the answer is yes, and everyone gets a piece. But if we then also say yes to stewardship, we're more thoughtful in our generosity. But on the other side of that, if we only say yes to stewardship and it's all about responsibility, we might miss opportunities for generosity to take place.
So one of the things I want to spend a little bit of time on and talking about the importance of core values and adhering to core values and identifying core values is that sometimes we feel rubbed in a relationship, but if we haven't identified the core value, we don't know why we are bothered. So I feel like I've done a really good job at protecting some of the relationship failures that I've had. But I think one of the things towards the last quarter of my marriage that I identified or that I didn't identify was financial stewardship as being a huge value for me and generosity. So it's funny that you brought those up. I don't know if you were like reading my values or remembering them, but so I couldn't articulate why living tight-fisted really bothered me, or why when we lost all of our money, did it panic me so deeply? And so I think that when we ignore our core values or we go against our core values, that it has us a relational rub. Can you talk to us about the detriment? I'm going to slow down because I want to make sure that this makes sense. Talk to us about the detriment about foregoing our core values and how it shows up in our relationships.
Yeah. So ultimately, let's go back to the riverbank illustration. I think this is really helpful. So if the riverbank is in place and solid.
Wait, can I be dumb?
Yes.
So you've said riverbank in episodes 1 and 2 and now 3. I want to make sure for any like urban dweller, you're from Colorado, sister. Okay, so a riverbank that runs alongside, it's like where where it ebbs and flows, like along the side?
Yes.
Or okay.
I love that you called that out. I often get called out on how Colorado I am.
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to like
I
blink
don't
my eyes and be like, I totally know what you're talking about. But I'm like, I actually think there's other people in the podcast that don't know what a riverbank is.
They have no idea. Okay.
Go ahead, Colorado.
Okay. So I think we can all imagine the Grand Canyon.
Yes.
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 So technically, the walls of the Grand Canyon are like riverbanks. They are the most massive riverbanks that we can imagine.
Oh, so the things that keep it.
It's keeping the river going where it needs to go.
I was way off. I'm so glad I asked this dumb question.
I am so glad you asked.
Great.
I have a new way of sharing this with clients now.
That totally makes sense.
So imagine the walls of the Grand Canyon.
Super
that would
cool.
be the most fortified
Okay.
riverbanks we can imagine.
Okay.
In context.
Thank you.
Helpful?
Very.
Okay. So the Colorado River going through the Grand Canyon is not deciding where it's going. Instead, it is the riverbank that is saying, and now we go north.
So good. Got it.
Got it?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that we have a river that has not yet forged the depths of the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
Okay, so we're just getting established into our core values. The riverbank might feel like it's mostly helping, but it's not able to take on the rushing rivers of life, so to speak. The big moments when trauma hits, we experience loss, we are walking through the unimaginable. That's when things get really rough and we see the white rapids. So let's go back to the relationship example. If our riverbanks are not as solid as the Grand Canyon, and we say, you know, that core value that I have of authenticity, is it really that important? I think I can go into this relationship one way and still maintain my other relationships and be a different version of myself. Well, then what happens? We overflow those riverbanks. And that one river that was suddenly flowing with so much life and vitality and rushing just with life, overflowing with life. Instead, it just turns into a lake and our conscience gets seared. And then when we're not honoring our core values, we're just kind of in this, yeah, sure, whatever. We can have that attitude toward life. Sure, okay, yeah, sounds good. and we're not decisive in our decisions. We say yes to all the things we were never supposed to say yes to. We struggle in our no's. How many times now are we hearing the importance of boundaries? Well, this is a perfect example of this. Oftentimes we need a boundary to uphold a core value. If we're struggling because there's codependence happening, it's probably because that person is unable to honor our core values. And so we must then set up that boundary. And so core values can help us to establish when those boundaries are needed.
So I think I shared a little bit of this with you, but again, I was so excited in identifying core values that I wanted all my friends to do this. So now all my podcast friends, guess what? You can go get the free DF and you can do this with your friends. But because I was able to articulate my core values, I was so excited that I wanted to share it with my friends so that they knew those core values. And so if I, bump up against them and there's something that maybe we don't agree with, it's because it goes against a core value. So I was in Lake Como with some of my friends on vacation, and I had gone through this process, and I was so excited in sharing this aspect with them that we all went around this dinner table in Italy over pasta and discussing what are our core values. I felt like I understood them in a way different way, and the decisions that they made, maybe something that might have bothered them that I didn't understand why they bothered them, because I knew their core values, it helped me like love them and know them in like such a beautiful way. What is the importance of identifying our core values is that we can integrate those core values with our everyday decision. I didn't know this until I went through this process with you. A core value for me is generosity. And there is this dovetail between generosity and hospitality. We see it in our church. Hospitality is a big value within our church, and it stems, from the top. I didn't identify this until there was, I won't say who because I love them and respect them, but they were in a interesting season, where the place that they were living in, they had to get out immediately and they didn't have anywhere to go. And I found out that this individual was like couch surfing at different people's houses, and at one point stayed even their night in their car. Well, I was so taken back by this, and a core value for me was hospitality and generosity. So I told this person, I have a guest room. You are moving in with me, and you are not paying rent. You're not doing anything. Now, I also had wisdom to put like a time cap on that. I'm not going to have no freeloader up at my house. But I said, for up to 6 months, I want you just to save and get into a place where you can live on your own. And we ended up living together for 3 months. By the way, I just realized right now, people need to know it was a woman. It was not a man.
Minor detail.
Because integrity is also a core value for me. But I just wanted to include that. I don't want no rumors circulating out there. But talk to me about the power of integrating core values.
Yeah, I mean, there's applications all over the place. So I've already mentioned some of the vocational applications of how we show up in our leadership and with our teams. I think also relationally, I love that you took the time to go through this with your friends. And I would encourage, yes, grab the PDF, print off 5 of them, and go sit at a coffee shop and do this with your friends and find out what really is helpful in their decision-making process, the hills that they would die on, what's most important to them. And so we have to have these different applications. I even think about this idea of iron sharpens iron. Is there something in that might be a core value for someone that maybe they haven't taken the time to recognize that the people that they surround themselves with, they can't be loose in their friendships?
Wait, say that again. Wait, say that again. Say it differently.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I want to make sure that I'm putting the puzzle pieces together.
Yep. So it can be really easy for us to say yes to friendships. Sometimes they have deep impact. Other times they're just the people that we're familiar with. But what we don't recognize is that over time, their presence in our life does actually shape us. And so if we can maybe hold on to this idea of iron sharpens iron, if that is somebody's core value, you might then say yes more often to some people than you would say yes to otherwise. Meaning, these are the people in my life who are going to hold me to it.
Got it.
They're going to be the voice of reason and wisdom, and they know me, and I can trust them. And together, we're going to make each other better because we're in this relationship. Versus to the point of freeloading. I don't need freeloader friends. I don't need somebody who's just along for the ride. I want people in my life who are going to continue to help me develop as a person and point me to Jesus and do all of these things that are going to help me be the best version of myself. So that would be another application of a core value. That same idea of iron sharpens iron might show up then in how you parent. So, okay, together we're going to work with our kids.
That's great.
And if we want them to become sharp and strong as iron, then we can only expect that of them in how we show up as a parent.
So in talking about the applied aspect of core values, I can't reiterate how much this was so seminal for me. I identified that trust was a core value. I also had the wherewithal to recognize that because my trust had been so deeply broken in a number of aspects, not just in one, but a number of aspects, that I identified trust as a core value, and I realized I didn't know how to trust again. So after this process I went through, my next intensive that I made a financial investment in doing was I did an intensive, a 3-day intensive, all focused on how do I trust again? So in identifying a core value, it doesn't mean that it's a strength. It could mean that it's an area that you need to grow in or find language to help identify or ask yourself why that is a core value. So again, I can't advocate for this enough, but I want to go back to this idea of core values impacting our relationships, but I want to speak about it also from the dating aspect. You and I were talking about this, and I assumed that if I date somebody, I want their core values to be my core values so that we never fight and we totally get along. But then you brought something interesting up. So talk to me and unpack whether this is romantic or even platonic. Should all my friends have the same core values, or should my boyfriend, husband have the same core values?
We're all going to have our own sets of core values.
Okay.
And those are informed by a lot of things. How we grew up, what's important to us today. We talked about priorities. What our priorities are going to be informed by our core values. And so let's use dating as an example. Also, words like justice can mean something very different from one person to another. So let's say you're in a dating relationship and you think that you both value justice. Something happens globally, and one person responds very different to the news report than the other person. You see it happen all the time. And then we're sort of in this whiplash moment thinking, wait, what? Why are you feeling that way and I'm feeling this way? I thought we had the same core value of justice. But we have to take core values one level deeper, and we have to give it definition.
Yes.
So we were just talking earlier, Bianca, about this. Do I have a core value of fun? Everyone around me thinks that I have a core value of fun, and you do have a core value of fun. And I might also have a core value of fun, but the way that we define it is going to be very different.
Yes.
So in a dating relationship, it's important that we understand our core values and we map them out with both the title and the definition. We share them with the anticipation of honoring those for each other. So going back to the financial decisions, if one person values fiscal responsibility, let's say you are split into two people, one person really values fiscal responsibility, the other person really values generosity. As you make these financial decisions, you're going to have to work together and acknowledge and honor each other's core values, which ultimately you're probably getting the best of both worlds in that scenario. But you might understand where this person feels wildly generous and they want to do this thing that almost feels outlandish, and the other person is really struggling. But if they can say, oh yes, my spouse, my partner, my best friend, their core value of generosity is coming into play here, and I want to honor that for them. And then similarly, if a decision around fiscal responsibility leaves the other person feeling like, well, why are we pinching our pennies here? Then they have an understanding to say, oh yes, your value of fiscal responsibility.
I love that. You mentioned this, but I just want this to be uber clear for people, which was, I think, it was a mind shift for me, that not only in the PDF and in this process, that if you do the full life plan process, is that you identify, articulate the value, and then you define it. That was very interesting for me because I'm such a word nerd that I'm like, well, trust is a value, therefore I want to look at the Webster's Merriam Dictionary. But trust is actually this very nebulous value. And so I love that we get to articulate what that value means. I also want to openly share that our core values can change in different seasons. So when we did this process a year and a half ago, well, whatever, in a different season, I listed the things that were super important to me in that moment. So high value of integrity, high value of trust, high value of loyalty. I think those core values came out of the season that I just lived through. When I was in Italy and I was sharing this with my friends, they were all shocked to be like, wait a minute, fun isn't a value for you, because it's such a driver in my life. Not just because I'm an Enneagram 7, but I've been this way since I was a kid. I love parties. I love attending parties. I love planning parties. I love cleaning up after parties. I just love fun. Fun's a huge value. It didn't make the list when we did this because I think I was in a hunker down season, but we just edited my life plan and I put fun as a value, a core value for me. So I do want to highlight that core values can change. Speak to me a little bit before we kind of like put a bow on this, on when do we reevaluate our core values and how do we know that our core values are not changing relationally? Because I think we get into relationships and sometimes we think, well, because they believe that, I should believe that. Or I want them to like me, so I change it. So when should we evaluate our core values and how do we not allow them to be influenced by anyone else?
Yeah. So I think this goes back to episode 1 when we were talking about perspective before planning. So we had to listen to the entirety of your story and unpack some different things before you had the ability to clearly articulate as best as you could in that moment what your core values are today. Yeah. And so I think the encouragement that I would give people listening is it's very likely that you've always held to these core values, but the season of life that you're in is absolutely going to color what makes the page today. And so it's important that at least once a year we check in with our core values. Are these still the core values? Are they still the way that I would articulate them? And then do I have a trusted person or 5 in my life that I can say, does this seem like me? Is this who I am? Is this what I'm about in life? And if the answer is yes, then I'm sure you feel some sense of affirmation. And if they have some questions, consider that. Take that perspective into play and see if there's a way that you might be able to shape them differently if you feel like that is indeed true. So it's great this afternoon to say, okay, Bianca, this idea of fun, how does that then play out as a core value? And so we were able to give that definition. So to answer your other question, what does it look like if we're in a relationship? Do we do something with the other person's core values? Because I think the tendency can be, wow, I really like this person. Let's try to make this work. And we have a risk or a tendency to then adopt their core values. But the reality is we need to get to a place of honoring each other's core values. So we need to stay firm. Back to that riverbanks analogy, we got to be as firm as the Grand Canyon. Nothing is going to move these core values for us. They are the hills that we would die on. When those of you with children ask your kids one day, hey, are these my core values? They're going to say, uh-huh. You live those every single day. I see it day in and day out. And we would hope the same of the person that we choose to do the rest of our lives with, that the day we started dating them till the day we were no more on this earth, that was still true all the way through. So we have to make sure that we stay aligned to our own core values and not risk taking on someone else's.
So just so that everyone is aware, the life plan process is these small things that we're distilling each of these episodes. There's like 15 more that we haven't even unpacked that is part of the life plan. I don't want to put you on the spot. Literally, you're hearing this in live time, say no. But the 2 big things of this entire life plan that I walked away with that have replenished me and given me vision and insight is identifying my life statement. And the task usually in life plan is to envision your life in 10 years. But we actually, there are some things in my life that I'm putting a deadline on. So we did a 5-year plan. And I don't know if there's a resource that can maybe help somebody identify or walk through articulating where they want to be in 10 years. But I want to say, not because I'm getting a kickback, but life plan was a gift to me, and it was a gift that you gave me, and it's a gift that you are now giving aspects to our podcast community. Your time, you getting on a plane to be here, I pray that you have rich rewards, not just in heaven, but on earth as well. Tell all of the fine folks at Patterson how grateful I am for the wisdom that they've curated and the wisdom that they're giving generously to other people. And is there a document or is there a prompt that we can just close up this podcast series with, and that maybe can give somebody the assignment to identify and dream, articulate who they want to be in 10 years? Because that was seminal to me.
So good, Bianca. This is where you're going to have me tearing up now.
Thank you, friend.
So what you're talking about when we get to that life purpose statement and we're really figuring out, okay, then why am I here?
Yeah.
Who am I? That took us a day and a half of work to get to. So we get down to that final, it looks like a worksheet. It's a construct. And so we've pulled out 4 helpful lists, replenishment cycle, and core values, recognizing that these work a little bit better as a standalone outside of the full guided process. So what you guys are experiencing and going through and downloading the worksheet from, we're sort of breaking the process and saying that we're not going all the way through it, but we think that you can get through these as self-guided as possible. And so to your point and what we were just talking about, it might be difficult to get a really good handle on purpose, answering that question, why am I here, without doing all of the work leading up to it. But let's suppose that someone says, I think I have a pretty good idea. Maybe I don't have the words to it, because what we're not doing in the life plan process is assigning purpose to you.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
We're just putting words to it. It's already in you. So if you think that you can clearly articulate to the best of your ability, this is why I'm here, then the encouragement would be, then let's talk about vision. So put that next mile marker out, whether it's a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Here's the most helpful piece. If it's too far, it's going to feel nebulous.
That's where
really vague.
Yeah.
If it's too close, it's going to feel very achievable and not too far out of reach. So you want something that feels like kind of audacious. Like, what? That could actually be where I'm at, even if it's 2 years from now. And so when you're playing out vision, you're taking this idea of purpose, who am I in the world, even if you don't have perfect language around it, and then going back to those life domains that we've talked about. Personal, family, vocation, community. What could be? What do I sense God calling me into, stepping into, saying yes to, that He's already paving the way? So we're not becoming God of our life, but we're instead saying there's a cooperation that could happen here. And when I look in the mirror and I see this man or woman 10 years from now, this is the picture of what I see. Physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. Who have I become? Who am I in the process of becoming? Within my family, what could be in this marriage that currently feels like it's in shambles? But if there's strategic, inspired work that's done, where does that land us 10 years from now?
Yeah.
Where are our kids? Push play, fast forward 10 years, your 5, 4, and 2-year-olds are now 12, 14, and 15. Like, that's a lot of work that could be done over 10 years. Maybe vocationally you feel stuck, but there's a word, there's a vision, there's an illustration of what could be. You might not know that you're working for company X, but what you do know is who you are as a leader or as a contributor or in bringing those talents of artistry and creation to an organization, to a cause. And so that can be really helpful. And then looking at community. Maybe today you're not plugged into a church, or you don't have the best group of friends around you, or you really are not in love with where you're living. Fast forward the tape, 5, 10 years, what could be? And so that vision piece is really meaningful. And even this afternoon, we were reviewing your vision, which is still a little ways out, and praising God for His faithfulness.
In just 1 year.
Less than a year.
Less than a year.
Yes.
Good grief. Less than a year, I have seen so much of that already come to pass. The faithfulness of God, the faithfulness it really astounds me. And I don't want to say, I'm very cautious because this might feel like manifestation for people. It's not. It's casting a vision.
That's right.
Scripture is very clear. Make a vision, make it plain. Write a vision.
Write the vision.
Write the vision, make it plain. So this is biblical. I think it's a biblical practice. For those that maybe don't have the wherewithal or the time to go through this process, these tools are a gift to us. I'm gonna encourage our community that if you have gone through these 3 days and you've downloaded the PDFs and this is something that you have ability for, I'm gonna go as far as saying is you will not regret going through a life plan process. I'm saying this and I'm documenting it here. I don't even think we've talked about this offline, but I want to take Revere Church through StratOps. So I know what life plan has done for me, and I'm believing that the impact will dovetail into our community as well. I am so excited about just the generosity that you've bestowed to our community. Again, thank Patterson on our behalf. And we want to know what you are thinking, what you are learning. Before we wrap up, I want people not just to get the Patterson URL, but even ways they can connect with you. And we want to know, we're nosy folk. If this series has impacted you, we want to know, what are you learning? Tag us on social media. And let us know. What are your core values? What is your replenishment cycle? What's right, wrong, confused, and missing? We want to know. We want to know. This is a labor of love. DeAnza, you are amazing. You are a gift. You are talented. You have this Zen energy about you that is just so calming and so safe. Thank you for being here. As we close out, again, URL for Patterson with one T, the Patterson URL, as well as ways that they can maybe get connected or follow along or get more information directly. Share that here, and then I'll close this out.
Yes, please visit pattersongroup with one T.com/Bianca. And this is where we've made those resources available. And also, if you're saying, DeAnza, I'm a key leader at an organization and we need to get clarity on where we're going, we would love to connect with you on the StratOps side. And if as an individual you're saying, I want to make this investment, let us know the questions that you're asking yourself today. We really do believe in the power of a great question. And that's what we do. We are in the art of asking questions and seeing what comes in the response. And so we're not here to say that we are the know-it-all in anything. We don't even like calling ourselves consultants. We want to be here to serve you and to bring great process into your life and into your organization. So Bianca, thank you for having me. And we're so grateful for all of your listeners. I know you have a faithful following of people who just think the world of you, and they've walked with you through so much. And it's been a journey, and there have been so many beautiful things that have been on the other end, not just of your life plan, not of anything that you manifested, but you said yes to what was on your heart and what you felt like God was calling you to do. And so from all of us on this side of the mic, thank you.
Thank you. Friends, I'm excited that we get to put this series together. I hope it has been a resource for you. Again, as always, the best way that this podcast can stay in people's ears is when you share it. So consider leaving a positive review, sharing this podcast on social media, letting us know via social media what you are learning, what you are walking away with. And as always, thank you for taking the time to listen. Those resources are free 99. The link is in the show notes. The link to get more information about Patterson's in the show notes. Otherwise, family, love you, appreciate you, and can't wait to connect soon.